welcome to Weekends with Whitney. Coming up on this morning show, meet the first female high school football coach in Louisiana.
Run, first chance you get, you punt it on the run. You got to get rid of it.
What it took to get here and how she tackled all the obstacles in her path. Plus, 10 years ago today, Kevin Kimble jumped in a boat to rescue those trapped by Hurricane Katrina's rising floodwaters in New Orleans. The remarkable things that one day taught him about his fellow man. And how one of New Orleans' most famous residents, Charmaine Neville, rode out Katrina in the 9th Ward and made it out alive. And Dr. Nick on the power and resiliency of the human spirit. But first, football coach Susan Grimion. Her grit, guts, and gumption on the gridiron.
If you drop it, you got to pick it up quick. You look, you run. First chance you get, you punt it on the run. You got to get rid of it.
These are the first Louisiana high school football players to ever have a female head coach. But Coach Susan Grimion is no newcomer to the game or the War Eagles field. She's been an assistant head football coach here at the Louisiana School for the Deaf for the last 12 years.
Oh, it's pretty awesome. I'm glad this finally started because I've been waiting all summer.
So has quarterback Matthew Brown, who says having a female head coach is a bit different than a man.
He said, we'll start practicing, we'll run sprints and drills, and it's different because you're having to do it the right way or we'll have to redo.
Oh, so she's harder than the man?
Yeah.
For her coaching staff, it's a new playing field for them too.
She has all of their respect, and that's important, you know, to have their respect. She has everybody's respect, not only the players, but the coaches as well.
No, I mean, she reminds me of what I was like my first year as head coach, a lot of energy, a lot of passion.
Darren Grimion was head coach here the last 15 years. Now, as an assistant coach, he answers to a woman who is also his wife. It adds another unusual dimension to Coach Susan Grimion's groundbreaking head coaching job.
It was a little awkward because now he's having to stay back, and it's like, okay, how far does he stay back? How much does he coach? And so he, after a couple of days of practice, he came in my office. He goes, okay, we need to talk, you know. And I was like, you know, ultimate, you know, big decisions, what the grand scheme is of things, what we're wanting to achieve. I said, yes, that is my responsibility. He's calling the defense, and I'm helping him with that. I told him, I said, no, just enjoy coaching. The sign for that would be like, all the big responsibilities are off. Just have fun and coach.
Offensive coordinator Jeff Major says his ego can handle having a female boss.
Well, you know, I tell people jokingly, I listen, my wife tells me what to do at home all the time. So now on the job, it's really no big deal.
You've learned through the years.
I've learned.
Coach Grimion's job is more demanding than most football coaches. She has to talk and sign simultaneously. And in addition to her deaf players, several others are legally blind.
Get your helmet on. Let's go. It takes you a little bit longer. You got to be the first one putting your helmet on.
Their football schedule looks more like that of a college team. This season, they'll travel to Arkansas, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Georgia, among others.
Hey, let's go, let's go. Hustle back, let's go.
Now, for people who may say, oh, I don't think a female coach can be tough enough, is...
Susan, you were out here for a little while. She gets her point across.
Hit them hard and do what? Knock them down, sportsmanship, help them up so they're ready so you can hit the crap out of them again. Let's go. My personality hasn't changed because it's always been pretty strong personality.
But perhaps nothing is stronger than her desire to win. So what's your goal this year?
Win a national championship.
The War Eagles won it all in 2005. They believe they can do it again.
Try to win a championship this year. So 10-year anniversary, perfect timing. I like numbers, you know, I believe in the numbers and how they work out. And so 10th year, it's a good time to earn another one.
If you'd like to see the War Eagles in action, their first home game is Saturday, September the 12th at 6 p.m. against Georgia at the Louisiana School for the Deaf on Brightside Lane. Everyone on the field is an inspiration to watch. And still to come on Weekends with Whitney. Stories of courage, hope, and faith in the floodwaters of Hurricane Katrina, and some surprising lessons learned. and Dr. Nick on the power of our incredible resiliency in the face of disaster. After this.
Maggio, the only way to go. Maggio Buick GMC, your satisfaction's our specialty. We really deliver on Falls River, here in New Roads. Small town atmosphere, legendary service for over 60 years. Maggio, the only way to go. The only way to go, that's Maggio.
Welcome back to Weekends with Whitney. It was 10 years ago today that New Orleans and surrounding areas were underwater. The feeling of helplessness propelled a lot of people into action. That was the case for Kevin Kimble. While he spent his career in the restaurant business, his father said they needed to take their expertise that they had on the waters, take their boat, and go and rescue people in New Orleans. Well, Kevin thought it was a bad idea that could have dangerous consequences, but his father said he was going anyway. And so Kevin, not wanting his father to go alone, jumped in the boat with him. And Kevin says along the way, he learned some of life's greatest lessons.
It wasn't the place really for us to be, but we were there anyway. Dad just wanted to help. Our objective was to go down and help people get out of their houses in the flooded areas.
The Coast Guard helicopter rescues are vivid in most of our minds because they had cameras. But Kevin, like most doing boat rescues, did not take a camera.
I didn't take anything with me to document. I didn't take a camera. I felt like I felt like I was intruding on someone's difficult times. I wish I would have documented some things, you know, but I couldn't do it.
You felt like a voyeur?
Yeah, and so I felt like it was compromising the reason that I was down there. I was down there to help people. And not to film myself helping people or other people helping people.
One by one, they found those trapped by the floodwaters.
We got some people out of the houses. We loaded some people onto the boats and got them back up to the interstates. They had medical trucks and vans there, and it was a very surreal experience. It was a very humbling experience.
It was New Orleanians criticized for not evacuating that guided Kevin and his dad where to go.
There were a couple of not only able-bodied, but almost very fit, almost, you know, bodybuilding regimented guys, you know, very fit guys, maybe late 30s to early 40s, and we knew we weren't the first boat that they'd seen, and so when we went there to get them, and Dad asked them, said, you know, were we the first people that y'all have seen come through here? You know, why are you still here? And the guy said, you know, our house, if it weren't for the levee breaking, look, the house is fine. We've been here in our whole lives. Get away, get away, get away, hurricane, hurricane. House is fine. If not for the flood waters, we're still fine. Number one. Number two, he said, we spent all day yesterday with y'all, is what he kept saying. Y'all, like you guys, the people
like
coming in.
You were the first responder.
The people coming in to help them or help get them out. And he said, we spent all day with y'all yesterday because we knew where all the elderly and the sick people were that didn't leave their homes and didn't have any caregivers. So we rode around and got everybody out. And he said, and there's one gentleman left. And if y'all will agree to co-ride and let us try to take him out, then we're ready to go. He's the last one that we know of that needs the help of the sick and the elderly. And so we did. And we drove by a lot of homes. We drove by a lot of people that were on their balconies, and hurricane parties and whatever was going on, dealing with the situation like it was just going to be over the next day. We saw a lot of that, and we drove by them, and we were going, wow, maybe they don't understand, or I don't know. And we went and got that older gentleman, and we got him in the boat, and when we came back by, all of the revelers, I guess, that were making light of the situation, that's how they were dealing with it all, they stopped, and they were just very happy that somebody was getting this older gentleman out. And they were clapping, they were saying thank you. Yeah, it was a very humbling, touching situation to be in.
World-renowned singer and famous New Orleanian Charmaine Neville was one of the city's residents who rode out Hurricane Katrina. She had the money to evacuate, unlike thousands of others, but she stayed for those that otherwise would have had no one.
I stayed because I had neighbors that could not leave. I had cats and dogs that I was not going to abandon, and I couldn't take them with me because no hotels were going to take them. And I called and checked with many hotels, and they said, no, you cannot bring your dogs, you can't bring your cats. I'm not going to leave my children. Those are my children. And I had neighbors that were very ill. I had my neighbors 2 doors down from me. They were both deaf and blind, and nobody came for them, and then another neighbor, she was double amputee, so nobody came for her. So how could I abandon people, And I mean, so it was water. I know how to swim, Yeah. How long can you tread water, though, is the whole trick.
Navigating through a city Kevin knew well was now eerily unfamiliar.
It was really weird, too, because you would stand at the front of the boat, and I would have to tell Dad where to maneuver to because the tops of the cars under the water. You didn't want to hit them with the propellers, and to move the red lights out of the way so you don't hit your head on them. And I mean, it was really surreal. One of the boats got stuck, and they didn't know why they were stuck, and then they finally look in and they found out, and they're literally grounded in the back of a limestone dump truck, and they didn't know that they had gone on it. It was so deep under the water. So yeah, it was a surreal situation. It was something that I'm glad I got the chance to experience, but obviously hope nobody has to experience that again.
Nothing looked or sounded the same.
That was really that stuck out to me the most was the quiet in the streets and the dogs. You hear the dogs barking. Some of the animals that weren't taken out whenever, and that was just really, you'd hear some tapping, some people that would be in their attics, and they had helicopters and the things that were doing that because the water wasn't that high up.
The people Kevin met caused him to question and re-examine much of what he'd been hearing on the news.
You heard about how bad some of the people were that were down there, and why are you going to get them? They wouldn't leave, and this and that. And then the first 2 guys you come up to spent the whole day getting the elderly and the sick out. I mean, it was.
And without them, who would have known where they were?
No, that's right.
So many people were doing the right thing, and people like to say that our young people don't do the right things, and it's so not true. So many young people who could have just turned their heads, stopped, and helped anybody. They didn't care who you were, what color you were, how old you were, how young you were. They stopped and they helped.
They're good and bad all over the place. Every race, creed, religion, there's good and bad everywhere. And you can't really lump one group into an all bad scenario.
Despite Kevin's initial reluctance to be part of the rescue, he says he was never afraid.
We weren't afraid.
Because people talked about gunshots or the fact that people might hijack your boat or, things like that. There were some undesirables there doing that.
Well, and some of that was going on, sure, and they made us aware of all of that. But it was a first responded group. It was an effort that was put together. There were National Guard and State Police in the front and in the back of the whole area. I felt safe. I didn't ever feel not safe. I felt like we were just there to help somebody out. And all the people we ran across, even some of the ones that we saw looting, there was never a situation where we felt like we were threatened.
10 years later, looking back, what's your takeaway? What did you learn?
I learned a lot about people. I learned a lot about being judgmental, or being less judgmental, I should say. I learned that if you really believe in people, then you won't be so quick to jump up and judge. You gotta keep an open mind, and you gotta keep open eyes, and you have to give people the benefit of the doubt. And sometimes they may prove you wrong, and sometimes you might be wrong, and you might get burned here and there, but there's so many more people that will prove you right.
Believing in the goodness of others brings out the goodness in all. And still ahead as Weekends with Whitney continues, Dr. Nick on the power and resiliency of the human spirit.
Give the gift of fine dining. Wayne Stabler Companies is offering one card for 4. Le Creole, The Little Village, Stab's Steak and Seafood. 4 sizzling restaurants, 1 card.
At Raising Cane's, we believe in one love. Quality chicken finger meals. But creating one love is no simple task. Everything has to be served hot and fresh. Not just hot. We use only 100% premium chicken tenderloins, guaranteeing a 0% chance of leftovers. We insist on the best ingredients for our fries, like potatoes. Well, we can keep talking quality, or you can just eat it. Raising Cane's, one love.
This segment brought to you by our friends at Wayne Stabler Companies. Welcome back to Weekends with Whitney. Well, it was 10 years ago today that the levees had breached, and all of us were in the midst of a crisis here in Louisiana. And I don't know if you're like me, but I can't believe how many things I had forgotten about that storm. And I was on the news desk 12 hours a day. And I wonder if that's a protective mechanism or what it really says about us. Is it a good thing, a bad thing? Dr. Nick joins us this morning with more. Good to see you.
Good morning, Whitney. And I do remember that you were at that desk 12 to 15 hours a day.
a.m. midnight until 12 the next day. Yeah. And then there were about 3 or 4 other hours after that, helping people do different things. Your friend was one of them. You reached out to me.
Yeah, and there were a number of us, probably not to the degree that you were, but certainly the adrenaline was flowing.
Oh, yes.
In all the helping community. That's one of the reasons why I think some of our memory is a little sparse, because we were so caught up again in the adrenaline flow, and in just the
volume
and the crisis point, and just the nature of the disaster. I mean, I was with a group this morning of elders who have memories of it that I was talking with, and we were talking about how, when you look back on it, it really was a constitutional crisis is the first thing. The mayor, the governor, and the president. We really didn't know who was in charge.
No.
And for a number of days, and this is not a negative, it's just that it was a constitutional crisis. Yes. The governor, I think, runs the National Guard, but it took a few days to get that going. Then we had
Michael Brown trying to come in and run everything.
Brownie, and then if you remember, again, the crisis of watching it, 24 hours of constant watching and feeling so helpless, which was one of the things that these people were saying, that sense of helplessness all over the country. And a great city, then you had the aftermath of whether we bring it back because it's under sea level. Remember the whole issue with the dome? which I'm grateful that we pulled it back because I think it was a symbol of restoration.
Right.
This was really a national crisis at its worst, and yet it brought out the best. The churches came through, the centers came through, the shelters came through, Baton Rouge came through, even with all that turmoil of this city and the traffic.
We had people like, I mean, just my across the street neighbors, Sean and Jill Burks, who went and they fed these people. I mean, they would just volunteer to cook big vats of things. And,
yes.
you know, down at the PMAC and down at the River Center, and everyone doing something that they could.
Yes.
And you said earlier that the people that you were with today, none of them were directly affected, but you know, I would challenge that we were all directly affected in some way. Baton Rouge's population, just exploded.
Yes.
We had traffic that was terrible. We had grocery stores and grocery store lines and a lack of a lot of things. Gas, remember how long it would take you to get gas?
Yes, and I also remember that I was driving a hybrid. And so I was getting 50 miles to the gallon and was so excited. But you're right, this group, and thanks for bringing that up, do you know 20, 30 minutes into it, they started remembering. It's the block. It's the block, and they started remembering. People in Shreveport in the group started remembering. Someone in Dallas said, "Oh, I do remember, you know, all the people coming into Dallas, and I do remember watching the television and wondering why are these people not being fed, you know." And Whitney, one of the things that I was also thinking about, I know that we like to hold terrorism to ISIS and people like that. Do you know that in many ways this was an act of terrorism because it was experienced as terror? The water and the wind, we went to bed Sunday night thinking we had survived it. Remember?
Yeah.
And then Monday morning we woke up to the dams had broken.
And the
water was coming in. And the terror of water and wind. Mother Nature. And again, I know we don't like to use the word that way, but it's true. It was an act of terror. We were terrorized by Mother Nature. And shows the power.
Yes, and speaking of power, the power of how New Orleans has been able to come back.
Yes.
I mean, I'm shocked at where we are 10 years later and how vibrant of a city it is. And it's people who decided to go back. I'll use your sister Angela. Bought in Lakeview. And it was underwater, had a lot to do to the house.
Sure did. And as I have said to you personally before, I take some credit for that because she didn't want to go back. And I said, Angela, you are 40 years old. This city is going to come back and you can be a part of it. And today, she is so proud of what she has done, as many are proud of what they've done. But it's also interesting too, Whitney, I just wanted to mention, you know, I helped with it for 3 years.
Oh, I know.
was involved with it.
Tell people how involved you were.
A lot of it, well, I was supervising the effort from the emotional and actually the emotional point of view.
The Hurricane Relief Project.
Many people didn't even have, they didn't know, you don't know what your prescriptions are if you take it. I don't know what my prescriptions are. And I take something for cholesterol and high blood pressure. If I lost that prescription, people didn't have access, they didn't have no paperwork to their homes.
No.
These were handed down. And then a lot of the people that came in, this is what's fascinating to me. They were traumatized, but they needed jobs. And where were the jobs and the helping? So the government was providing money to help people, and it's almost like me being a therapist in a group of depressed people, and I being depressed. Do you see how that was conflictual? It was a dual hat, but I think it turned out to be helpful.
Yes, yes.
I think it turned out to be helpful.
Yes.
Just as for you, you weren't traumatized, but you had a house full of family.
Oh, we had like 20 people living with us.
I mean, and I think this was one of the things they talked about, is how many of them had families in for 2, 3, 4 months.
It's a long time.
And how hard it got on them.
Yeah, and I will say, it was especially hard on me because I was up all night. So I'd get up at 11, you know, shower, get to work. You had to get there a little early, so sometimes I get up at 10:30, because you had to find out what happened while you were sleeping. And then, you know, go to work, do all that. I was emotionally exhausted when I came home.
Of course.
And they were living it up.
Sure. And waiting for you to help, possibly.
Yeah.
But what about when I called you? And because I thought, Whitney, I think it's such an incredible story. It's a book. You had the poorest of the poor in the dome with horrible atrocities taking place. Then you had the richest of the rich that went to Windsor Court to play bridge.
Right. You had friends at the Windsor Court.
I had friends there. And I called you and said, Whitney, they're willing to pay thousands. Can you get a helicopter in? And you were like, I just don't have any energy. I don't have it.
I can't coordinate that rescue effort. But I tell you, a helicopter was about the only thing, and the Coast Guard, you know.
But you know, they did get out. They finally did get out.
They finally get
out?
out?
They drove out at 4 a.m. in the morning, terrified of what they called might be a thug war. Because, you know, there was looting. Let's be honest. There was looting.
There was looting.
It was a need
but it was so over-exaggerated.
But there was also a need for survival, Whitney. I mean, you know, you get hungry after a few days.
You get thirsty after a few days.
You get thirsty after a few days. And sandwiches, again, started finally dropping in. See, I remember it all. It's just not as traumatic to me as it is, I think, to the people that directly experienced it.
And remember when we went to Renaissance? Remember they moved all the FEMA trailers over there and we spent some time there?
Yes, and how grateful they were that you came out.
Well, we're just grateful, period.
But I mean, and how I remember you being so awestruck at their resilience. The resilience of the human spirit is what this 10th anniversary should be about.
That's right.
The resilience of the human spirit and the human community that came together to help it out.
Amen. Thanks.
10th anniversary.
Thanks, Nikki.
Great to be with you, Whitney.
Thanks. Much more Weekends with Whitney right after this.
Maggio, the only way to go. Maggio Buick GMC, your satisfaction's our specialty. We really deliver on Falls River, here in New Roads. Small town atmosphere, legendary service for over 60 years. Maggio, the only way to go. The only way to go, that's Maggio.
Atlas Foundation Repair, fixing your foundation problems for more than 30 years while preserving and protecting your trees. Thanks for spending your last Sunday in August here with us on Weekends with Whitney, and be sure to tune in next week. We'll show you a Louisiana business that's developed the next big thing in clothing. It takes comfort, feel, and style to a whole new level. If you think Nike and Under Armour are big, I'll show you why Task could one day be bigger than both of them. Until then, you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or head to my website, weekendswithwhitney.net, for more on this or 45 of our other shows. Enjoy this beautiful Sunday. Right now, we leave you with the beauty of a rainbow.